And we're live. Clint, how are you doing?
I'm good, Caleb. Thanks for having me on, man.
No problem. Thanks for coming on. Let me just get the link real quick and I'll say it out and then we're talking. So how's your week going?
Good. I'm still living in flux, so this is very brutal. I have my whole setup on the edge of my bed here. Got a great view, but that's about it. I'm still waiting to move into my apartment, so this is a stressful time, but it's all good. I'm having fun.
Yeah. That's cool. Let me just there we go. I posted the link and I tagged you in it. So if you want to say anything, we should be good to go. Okay. So I didn't say hi, but I did see you at the Tom Woods event and the Tom Woods 2000s. But
yeah,
by the time I saw everybody, I was already drunk. Everybody else was drunk. I'm like, I'm gonna go to bed.
I stayed up until like 5 that morning. It was brutal, but it was worthwhile.
11 o'clock, I was in bed. I was dying.
Good for you.
I don't drink a lot, and so I was day drunk by 4 is a new thing for me. I did my first dine and dash at a Tom Woods event. So
sorry. Yeah, that was the first time I got to meet most of the Tower Gang guys. First time I got to meet probably 100 of my listeners. So that was it was a blast. I mean, it was just an absolutely amazing time.
Yeah, it was my first Liberty event. I don't plan to miss it anymore. I'm gonna find out where they are and go. It was too much fun.
Exactly. Yeah, this is the third one I've been to this year. I had only ever been to one, like, I don't know, a decade ago. And it was nothing like it is now. So it's, the scene is popping, man. Like, if people think this is some fad or something, like, no, it's happening.
Oh yeah, I'm very new to Liberty Space. I've only been probably in Liberty Space about 6 months, maybe 7 months. And so it's very fun just seeing meeting all these new people, you know, like it's great.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. I love it.
So I first heard about your podcast because I saw you do that debate with Kevin Castley.
Yes.
And that was just incredible. Absolutely amazing.
Oh, well, thank you. That's actually how I got on Dave Smith's radar, if you can believe it. I tweeted out a clip from that, which was probably my best 90-second, rip into neoconservatism. And Dave, who didn't even follow me at the time, replied saying, "Hey, can I get a link? I'd like to watch the whole thing." And I was like, holy shit, Dave Smith's going to watch my full 2-hour conversation with this lunatic. And he did. And then the next week, Pete Quinones goes on there on Part of the Problem with Dave, and he brings me up and he says really nice things about me. And Dave goes, "Oh yeah, that's that guy that destroyed that neocon kid." I was like, oh my God, amazing. So that was cool. That's kind of how I got discovered. Yeah. And it was nuts. I ran around my house when that happened.
So let's get into it. Fascism. It seems to be here. So I wanted to have this conversation with you after I saw your whole Twitter thing with Ace and Drew and everybody, and kind of saw it kind of go to shit.
Yes.
That was I was in the gym. I could not get off my phone. Every 5 minutes, I was like, anything new yet? I could not. It's like bad drama. I couldn't look away.
Yeah, I mean, Ace and Drew and I are all friends, so there's no bad blood there. It's just a friendly disagreement as to how we address this issue. I think that essentially our enemy is using our principles against us. They're using our values of private property rights and voluntary association or disassociation in this case, and they don't believe in any of those things. So it's very important that we delineate when our belief system is being used to manipulate and control us. That's my perspective on it, at least. Drew and Ace are more of the very purely principled libertarian stance, which I respect. I just think that in this time, it's a mistake. I think it's a mistake to respect private property rights up to the point that it basically allows for your subjugation. It allows for a caste system, a medical apartheid system in this country. I think it's a very dangerous precedent. I think they agree with me on that. We just have a disagreement on how to address it.
Yeah. So let's define fascism before we get farther into it. I
Sure.
have the quote saved over here from Mussolini. So I can. And I
The
here it
alliance
is.
of government and big business to manipulate the
Fascism
populace.
should more appropriately be called corporatism because it's a merger of state and corporate power. Mussolini. That seems a very fair and apt description.
That seems like what we're dealing with to me.
Yeah. One of my during the whole Ace thing, I had a few friends like send me tweets and send me like they showed it to me. They send me the tweet and like, hey, have you seen this yet? It was Ace and Clint, and my take on it was Ace and Drew are having the principled like answers. I think Clint has like trying to figure out solutions, and instead those don't line up anymore.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think that's the case. I mean, I think that they want solutions too. I just think that my focus is almost entirely on defeating this. It's not I'm not trying to maintain my principles to the highest level because I realize that, if I hold on to my principles, but it ends up in, a North Korea style totalitarianism, what good does that do me? And
Yeah.
the alternative is essentially, violent defense of myself. And I want to leave that as a complete last resort. And I fear that if we follow Ace and Drew's path, we ultimately will end up with that as the only resolution. And that is something that I will sacrifice some principles between here and there to avoid that, simply because people are not awake to my level. They don't understand the risk that we're in. They don't understand the danger of allowing this precedent. And that's my vantage point on it. Some people think that maybe I'm overstating the danger, but I truly don't. I mean, if I felt any differently, I would probably be addressing this more in the principled, hey, it's private property rights type manner, because that's at my core, that's who I am. But at my core, even superseding that sensation is one of demanding liberty in my lifetime and hopefully surviving to see it. That is priority number one.
Yeah, it's tricky because I don't even like I try to find I was looking at all the principal arguments and answers, and the best I could find principle wise is, do we really own property at this point? Like I put out a hypothetical on Twitter, was like, if the mafia came to you and said, hey, you have to pay us money to own the property, pay us money for protection, and then, hey, don't sell to Asian people because they don't want the Yakuza moving in over here, would that be coercive? I would say they're coercing the business, but the business has the right to do it in the first place. So it's
well,
I mean, tricky.
That was kind of my point with them as well, is that, we have not had private property rights for the past couple of years. The foreclosure and eviction moratorium on its face is a complete abdication of, private property rights. Like that to me is, I mean, I don't know if I'd go as far as communism, but it's pretty close. So it's very tough for me to see people on CNN, people on MSNBC saying, we have the right to discriminate, and private property is sacrosanct, and you have to honor the business owner's role in implementing vaccine passports. It's like, well, no, I don't. You didn't honor my property rights. I'm not going to honor yours. That's kind of how I feel about it. Perhaps that takes me out of the libertarian realm and more into a vindictive eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth type realm. But that's why I struggle to, I don't know, sit idly by as these businesses basically work as the enforcement arm for medical fascism.
And we all know there are certain businesses that are not really private anymore. Like the airlines, I wouldn't say are private. Most hospitals probably don't fall into private. So where do we draw this line? Like how do we go about determining when a business loses its private property? It becomes simply a enforcement arm of the state. Like universities, airlines, state. Mom and pop stops down the street, not state. But where's the middle ground?
Yeah, the middle ground is very hard to delineate. That's basically how I ended that episode, was trying to get them to give me an answer, and they couldn't do it either. They're like, we're going to have to figure this out on a case by case basis. And I'm like, well, as long as we have to figure this out on a case by case basis, we're not going to be able to galvanize our movement to oppose this. And I think that was a really important point that I hope they took to heart. I mean, if we if we want to use peaceful protest as a methodology for resolution, you have to be able to identify who you are peacefully protesting very early on, and you have to hit them with a lot of people, with a lot of signs, with a lot of protests, and a lot of not using their services. And if we're all in the middle of arguing over who is and who is not a private business, I just don't think that we'll be able to put together a meaningful protest that can actually oppose this. So I'm going to err on the side of, if you are implementing vaccine passports in a citywide basis, I don't care if you believe in it or not. Like, that's how I view it. Because if the city is doing it, I can't know what your beliefs are. Like, I think the best analogy, and I've used it before, I don't think people use it enough, honestly, is Jim Crow versus the Civil Rights Movement, or the Civil Rights Act. Civil Rights Act is not a libertarian principled thing either, but it is obviously better than Jim Crow. Jim Crow implemented segregation by law, and made it by force.
That's
that's
something a lot of people
basically how
don't
I view vaccine passports.
A lot of people, like, I talked to a lot of, like, conservative types. I was at a friend's house for a party, and people found out I was an ANCAP, and they were, like, asking me all these questions. And this one guy's like, "Oh, you're against government doing things? Well, I bet you were against government getting rid of Jim Crow laws." I'm like, "Say that again, but slower." What were they in the first place?
Right, exactly.
He
Yeah,
just
it's
shut down.
like,
He had nothing.
yeah, obviously we oppose Jim Crow. Most libertarians think that the Civil Rights Act went too far, because it basically forced integration. Jim Crow forced segregation. That is obviously worse than forcing integration, though neither is a purely principled libertarian policy. So I think that's basically what we're dealing with right now is, would I rather DeSantis and these other governors force businesses not to discriminate than have the president of the United States force them all to discriminate? The answer is, I would obviously rather governors on a local level force them not to. Now, neither are perfect, but I'm going to lean towards forcing not segregating.
Yeah, and I agree. It's like the government's gotten smarter because they made Jim Crow laws, and those laws can be repealed. But now they're basically just making mandates and backroom deals, and they're just exporting all their enforcement to private industries and giving them, like, this private protection, private industry cover, and it's really just terrible. It's like, when someone supports state action and decides to go above and beyond, like, if someone's gonna make a citizen arrest, let's say you're smoking a joint, and someone's gonna make a citizen arrest, they're acting in enforcement arm for the state. You have the right to aggress against them, I would say. So when does someone going along with the state's mandates become a co-conspirator with the state? I don't know.
It's very hard to say. I mean, obviously, if they were using violence, you could say it quite easily. Like, if it's a blatant NAP violation, then you could say, okay, well, now we know. In this case, because it's only discrimination, it's basically keeping people out of your property. It's not clear. I think obviously the problem is we can't know the property owner's actual heart and their actual wishes. Many of them are just trying to stay alive, and I don't blame them for just trying to stay alive. I think that that's another thing that people got misconstrued about my perspective is, like, I'm not saying that these people are evil, but I'm saying that their priorities are not mine. If their priority is to keep their business afloat because they've been locked down for a year and now they have to cooperate with this bullshit system of vaccine passports, I have sympathy for the position they're in. The same way I feel about any employee who principally doesn't believe in providing evidence that they've received the vaccine. But they do it because they don't want to lose their job and they want to provide for their kids. I have sympathy for that. My point in all of this is that it is still the wrong, and in my opinion, the immoral decision to do so. I mean, people will say, "Oh, no. Your priority is always to look after your children." I don't believe you're looking after your children by doing this. Now, in the short term, perhaps you are, because you're keeping paychecks coming in and you can provide for your kids. But you are essentially laying the groundwork by which your children will be ruled over for the remainder of their existence, and not just your children, but their progeny. Your entire lineage will now be essentially existing under medical apartheid and perhaps totalitarianism moving forward. I think it's worth sacrificing now to prevent that inevitability.
Yeah, absolutely. There's not gonna be any real disagreement here. Yeah, you and I both have on the same side of this.
Sure,
Really,
that's okay.
Yeah, the whole goal. One of my goals for the podcast, I wanted to try to figure out if we could. Obviously, the example is when someone having here's an example. The comic book store in my local town, the guy has cancer. His wife has him and his wife's immune system is just shot to hell. He wants everyone wearing a mask and vaccine before they come in the store. That's completely reasonable to me. I get absolutely fair with that. If Walmart tries to do the same thing, I don't trust Walmart's actually doing it for their own interest.
Correct.
Walmart's not telling customers out their own interest. Walmart's clearly not a private entity to act in the enforcement of the state. In between there, I want to try to see if we can figure out where, like how do we? That's the goal of this. I want to try to figure out if we can. Let's try to figure out where. And I've tried and thought about it. I can't figure it out.
I mean, I think the best way is to have state governors come out and say that we are going to make it illegal for the federal government, OSHA, anyone to levy fines against business owners that refuse the dictates. And then you would have a situation where the businesses might be able to actually behave by their own volition, by following their own actual principles. At this point, we don't have that. We don't have governors that are willing to take that stand, because it definitely would be a war footing. I mean, if DeSantis is already enemy number one when it comes to the Biden administration, and he is essentially trying to do that, not in a purely libertarian way, but I don't even know if my version would be a purely libertarian way either. However, I think it would be closer to our principles. So I think that would be the best way. Essentially, what we have to do is we have to get a balancing act to try and counter the federal pressure against, local businesses on a state level. And until we have that, I just don't see how you can actually know what they would do otherwise, because it's, we can't know.
Let's talk about Texas for a little bit, because Texas implemented that was it anti-mandate law? Pretty much, we're not allowed to ask for mandates, or they're not allowed to ask for vaccine passes.
Yeah,
I wish it was more like the law you were talking about. Would that be much better? But I gotta say, I'm actually I don't care at this point. Like I'm in the camp where I'm just like, I'm in the camp. It's like, no, people are gonna do bad shit. As long as I can I'm not gonna fight it. Like, oh, that guy's gonna go murder a pedophile. Well, you sit and kill people, in my opinion. But also, I'm not gonna get in his way. I'm gonna sit back and watch. This is not my fight.
This isn't my fight. Yeah, I mean, I feel, to a lesser extent, obviously that's an extreme example, but yeah, I feel the same way. I think that I would, like I said, I would rather have governors that are defending against segregation than having the federal level that's forcing it upon us. So yeah, I don't have any problem with Abbott or DeSantis or any of these other governors that have come out as of late to essentially criminalize or finize, because I think they're just threatening fines at this point. I don't think they're actually criminalizing it to that level where they can put people in jail. But so yeah, good by me. I mean, if we're ultimately going to have this segregated society, I would rather there be some states that don't. I mean, do we really want to have a national level system where there are no governors that are defending us? From a libertarian perspective, I can't imagine that would be any libertarian's preference. So it seems as if, while not being a purely libertarian position, it's the preferable outcome. So, maybe I'm getting in trouble with using consequentialism to argue this, but I don't care. I think that we need to have options to flee towards, because the alternative is I have to leave the country entirely, and I don't want to do that either. So
no, we can't all go move to Mexico and be like, what's his name,
right.
Moncleo.
Right. And as far as I know, they still have some mandates in Mexico too. So it's not a perfect option. It's like a lot of people keep talking about where's the best place to be, and this is what I'm doing on my exploration. I drove all the way across the country. I'm trying to figure it out. And
Florida,
there is
best place is Florida.
Yeah, well, that's why I'm here, you know. But I don't know where I'll ultimately end up for sure. But I think people need to realize, like, this is a global phenomenon. Like, we need to have enclaves of closer to liberty than what we have in many states in America right now, and many countries across the globe. It's like, this is a fight to keep liberty, the flame of liberty, alive on this planet. Like, that's how serious this is. And I'm not sure that everyone is really grasping the gravity of this. So I hope people wake up soon.
Yeah, same. It seems to me a lot of people are arguing liberty in principle, not in effect. Like, I care much more about the effect of liberty than I care about the principles of liberty. You know, it just seems, you know,
me too. I mean, we can have philosophical debates, but this is praxis. I mean, this is out of the philosophical realm. This is like, what are we dealing with in reality right now? This is not a hypothetical. This is happening. Yeah. So it's very important that whatever your principles are, you try to do whatever is necessary to see them become real. And I'm not interested in having purely philosophical debates anymore. You know, I was fine with that under the Obama presidency. You know, I was fine with that for most of my life. That's not where we are anymore. This is real shit. So, like, get going, folks.
There was a poll put out recently on Twitter by I can't remember who it was. If I find, I'll put tag in the description because I feel bad about mentioning it. It's a government mandate. Everybody has to have a gun. Government took away guns. What's one's better? Which one's worse? And it was, well, everyone pretty much agreed. Yeah, both equally immoral, but it much better. Everyone has a gun, and no one has a gun.
Of course,
obviously,
I mean, this is the exact same thing. I mean, would we rather have no vaccine mandates or everyone have a vaccine mandate? The answer is obvious. So I think that's why I'm leaning to the direction I am. And as I've said, if that makes me not a libertarian, okay. I don't care what label you want to put on me. I am trying to have liberty in my lifetime. And we'll do.
That seems to be happening a lot more lately. A lot of these people just don't care. Like, I don't know, but when I was in the conservative camp, everyone cared about labels. Every single cared about labels. Nowadays, you hear you, Pete, Andrew, a lot of these people are just like, I don't care about labels. I caught Adam a post-libertarian. He's like, I don't like that term. I don't like that term at all. I'm like, okay. There's no one wants the label anymore, and I don't blame them.
Yeah, well, I mean, I still like the libertarian label. I still believe that I am a libertarian for sure, but I just simply don't care what other people's perspectives of me are. I mean, I'm trying to fucking stay free. like that. If you think that your labels of me or some rumor mill bullshit about me is going to actually like derail the path I'm on, you're tripping. Like, I'm sorry, but labels are so irrelevant when I'm actually facing gulags. Like, so I think that's why and I'm grateful that Pete and Andrew and all these other guys are seeing things as seriously as I do, and Dave and a bunch of other people. I mean, it's necessary. I don't know if thank God.
Did you see not the last episode Dave did, but the one before that when you talked about the vaccines mandates?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I was actually kind of shocked. I don't know why, but I expected him to have the principled position, and I'm glad he didn't. But I was kind of shocked. I was kind of happily surprised because he kind of came. I'm like, I listened to him, like, I forgot how good Dave is sometimes. He kind of did that long. We did a break from podcasting. I forgot how good Dave Smith is when I hear a new part of Bob. I'm like, yeah, he's the best.
He's a legend. I mean, I would like to take some credit. I think that that I have had some influence on him over the past year. But ultimately, I think he would have come to the same conclusion regardless. He gets it. Like, I think that's why I have such an affinity for Dave is, I've been following him for 6 years. He and I have basically always seen things the same way. I mean, with very, very scant differences of opinion. So it doesn't surprise me. I mean, Dave is great. This is why I believe he is the future. I believe he is the ultimate standard bearer for liberty in a post Ron Paul world. So yeah, I agree with you. I'm thrilled that he is seeing this similarly.
Yeah, absolutely. That's I think I want to go next exactly. Let's shoot a shit a little bit. I saw you bought a new car. The beautiful looking car, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah, it's 2022 convertible Corvette. I've been on a waiting list for 2.5 years to get it because it was the first rear engine Corvette that was ever produced. Started in 2020, and then because of the lockdowns, they had major production backlogs, so I had to wait for literally 2+ years. And I finally got the call in July, and they said, "Okay, you're up finally." And then they allowed me to design it all, and I got a fully loaded convertible. It's I'm telling you, I drove it yesterday for the first time. All I did the day prior was I took it off the flatbed because I had to buy it in California because I ordered it in California, and then they had to ship it across the country to me. It cost me $2,500. Bummer. But I'm telling you, greatest car I've ever stepped foot in. And I've been in a lot of nice cars because I have very wealthy investors that I used to work with. And I'm telling you, it is the most bang for your buck car you will ever drive in your life. The thing is an absolute rocket ship, and it hugs the road in ways that I can't even describe. Like, I took this off ramp at 80 miles per hour, and it doesn't even feel like it eliminates G-force. Like, you don't even feel the angle. It's incredible, and it's fast as lightning. Sound system's killer. The convertible, I've never had a convertible. I was driving down Miami Beach last night with the convertible down for the first time, and looking up as I was driving, just looking at the palm trees as I was going down the street, and I was like, yeah, this is life, man. It's funny too, because I know a lot of people will be like, oh, you should have put that money in Bitcoin or whatever. It's like, look,
get fun.
With what we're up against, man, and I've worked solid for 15 years, didn't splurge, didn't spend basically anything on anything materialistic, other than housing, which is a appreciating asset thanks to the Federal Reserve, and I have no qualms about spending $100,000 on a car. Like, I worked my ass off, and this is the first time I've driven something, and it's still far beneath my means. So, like, whatever, I'm still being a conservative. I just drive a really fancy car now.
Driving in Florida is, for me, I've driven several places. Florida's my favorite place to drive. Something like when it's not humid, it's just a little bit of sun, palm trees. It's great. I used to have a T-top Camaro, and I would just drive that. It was, oh god, it's fun.
Yeah, my first car was a Nissan 300ZX, 1990. So it was the newer body style, and I had T-tops on that one, and God, I love that car.
I love T-tops. If there's a place in Alabama you could take your Monte Camaros to, and they'll put T-tops on it, and they'll cut T-tops into it. I'm like, it's so impractical and expensive, and they're gonna leak.
So
I might just save the money and do it, because fuck it, that'd be awesome. T-tops are the coolest thing.
Yeah, for sure. Well, this is even better, man. The convertible is power, so you can do it even up to 30 miles per hour. You can just do it on the fly. So if it starts to rain in Miami, I can throw the convertible top back on. But I'm telling you, it's something else. I have never enjoyed driving as much as I did. Like, last night, I was out with a lady friend, and we like got back to my condo that I'm staying at, and I was like, do you want to just go drive more? And she's like, yes. So we got back to the place, and then we left right away, and we went and drove more because it was just so much fun.
Nice. So back to Fascism. Now we've had a little break from the terribleness that we're dealing with. Back to the backpedaling Fascism problem.
Right.
Yeah, I've got to say, like, I live in Florida, and I need what I understand this is, already going towards the federal government, being their target. He needs to get on that whole, like, we still don't have that whole Texas law kind of thing we have here. He hasn't put in the vaccine mandate or anti-vaccine mandate yet, and I really hope he does. But I don't know. Like, he's taking some time, it seems like, and I don't know what he's doing. Like, it seems like if Wheels can do it, he would be doing it.
Well, this is the first time Wheels, as you called him, has beat Abbott to the punch on anything. Abbott has basically been following DeSantis's lead on all of this, So yeah, I agree with you. I think that that DeSantis, and he announced, I think it was on Monday, that he was going to hold a special session or whatever to try and get that implemented. So I think it's coming, and I'm grateful for it. I mean, as I've said, regardless of how unlibertarian it is, I would greatly prefer to live in a state that does not have these mandates.
Yeah.
The vaccine mandates. I would rather have anti-vaccine mandates. I don't want to live. I don't want to live in a future where we have this caste system and we have 10 or 15 or 20% in Florida. It might even be higher of people that absolutely refuse to take this shit, or at a minimum provide refuse to provide evidence that they've taken it. And then because of that, their career is in jeopardy. Their all sorts of stuff is in jeopardy. It's just fuck that. Like I'm sorry, but I don't want to live in that world. The whole reason I left California is to get away from that. And I think that that's another problem, especially from the principled libertarians that are opposing this stuff, is that many of them live in states where this is not a real threat. They have a governor that is perhaps not taking the DeSantis or Abbott path, but they are not forcing it on businesses yet. So I think that because of my experience being in California for the past 18 months of hell, I understand that I feel this on a different level than a lot of people. It's real to me in a way that it may not be to everybody else. And I would encourage them to try and put themselves in the shoes of someone in New York City or Los Angeles or San Francisco right now, and just realize, like, if you don't want that, you might want to take some dramatic steps to prevent that from happening to you as well.
Well, I think my internet is ass for some reason right now. You're freezing up and cutting out on me.
Oh, sorry about that.
Give me a minute to look at my settings and see what's going on.
Sure.
There's no one in the house. I still have all the internet. Okay, that's why. If for some reason it switched to my hotspot.
There we go.
Let me just get that. Okay. Sorry about that, folks. Anyway, no, I was gonna say, it's like, I don't mind if you're principally against something. Like, I'm pro-life, and so why I find maybe outlawing abortion is not a great thing, because I think I also don't really complain when it happens.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, this is the same thing. Like, I'm fine if you want to be principally against something, but when you argue against it, in effect, and doing nothing but hoping the other side.
Mm-hmm.
And that's my problem with some of these people when they argue against it.
Yeah, I'm not exactly in the same boat as I've discussed on my show a few times. I don't want the government involved in investigating every miscarriage across the nation, like, because they ultimately, if you really wanted to get rid of abortion, you would have to criminalize it to a level that when someone is pregnant and they've gone to the doctor and the doctor has confirmed their pregnancy, they would probably have some registration system that says this woman's pregnant, and then if she has a miscarriage, they would probably have to investigate them to know whether or not it was a murder. Because if you view it as murder, you have to investigate it like murder. A lot of pro-life people say, oh, no, we would just prosecute the doctors. It's like, look, if you're saying it's murder, then the woman is also guilty of murder. Like, and I don't think that you can get around that. If they hire a doctor, it's like hiring a hitman to take out their kid. You should be imprisoning both. So I err on the side of, I would rather this be socially taboo. I would rather, we work to have a culture that doesn't, popularize abortion, doesn't make it normal. It should be rare. It should be uncommon. But I don't think that it should be criminalized. That's my personal vantage point. But again, I'm not a Christian. I don't have a hard belief that, like, life begins at conception. I do think that it could, like, I think that there's a fair argument that it does. I certainly think that, second trimester, you have a life there. So I don't know. It's just gray area. And when it comes to the government, which is a hammer and not a scalpel, I would rather the government not be involved if we can avoid it.
Yeah. And I agree. I would prefer them not to be involved and become socially unacceptable. But at the same time, if to say Florida wanted to stop, Florida government, we're going to no longer fund taxpayer dollars, no longer go to Planned Parenthood kind of thing.
Oh, that's
I'd be all for it. The government also going to say, hey, we're going to close down certain ones and make it only ones in certain like spaces. You know, again, I have no problem with it. Like anything that kind of like decreases it, besides like when it comes to decreasing abortion, I think that's a much better option. When you like to say you don't need 15 Planned Parenthoods. If you set down for some of them and decrease the option, I think that is completely acceptable, even if it's not purely within a libertarian.
Sure. I mean, there's nothing. There's no purely libertarian answer to abortion. Like anyone that says that there is, I think is tripping. Like it's the same thing with immigration. There's too many variables for you to have a hard and fast libertarian answer like open borders or closed borders. Like, no, like I mean, you can have an opinion on it, but just please don't pretend as if this is the libertarian answer to this. It's very complicated. Yeah. The war on terror, the war on drugs, all these other things play a role in the immigration war. So, you know, we have a lot of things that we have to fix before we can have a purely libertarian solution to any of this.
Absolutely. Well, I only have one more question because my internet is still not wanting to work. So I'm going to do one more question and wrap it up early because I don't want to lose the stream halfway.
No problem.
Do people legitimately own property anymore? Like, this is me. I thought Andrew was talking about. It's like people have to pay property tax and do all the other things. They basically rent their property out to government. Do we legitimately own property anymore? Because I have a hard time saying we do.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not clear. As a lifelong real estate investor, I thought that was probably the most protected class of property ownership. Because you had the right to defend yourself in your home. You know, you had the right to go to court if like even if the government tries to seize your property through eminent domain, you still have a right in the legal system to try and prevent it or be compensated for it. There was a lot of layers of protection for property rights when it came to real estate. That has been overthrown almost entirely over the past 2 years. And I mean, that was probably the best property ownership protection that we had in this country, and we don't have it anymore. So I think that there's a very fair argument to be made that private property rights do not exist in America anymore. Yeah. Basically, if you have a dictator-like power whereby executive order, the president of the United States can do basically whatever they want. Congress doesn't vote on anything anymore, it seems like. They don't actually fight to protect us or prevent any of these executive orders unless, you know, Trump's in power. But if their guy's in power, I don't see any legitimate property rights. Like if Biden were to come out tomorrow with an executive order that says we're seizing all multifamily investor-owned properties, you would probably have a majority support in this country to do so. Like that's crazy to me. Like it's not even at the governmental level that we have lost private property rights. The American people don't value private property rights. They are so indoctrinated into this divisive, income inequality, haves versus have-nots mentality that I could see a movement in this country that says, like, oh, sure, you could own your house that you live in, but an investment property, no. And it would be close. I mean, it's like, I really believe it would be close. If you were to poll the American people, like, it would be very, very close as to whether or not that would be allowed, especially with the shortage of real estate and people feeling like they can't get their foot on the first rung of the investment ladder, which is usually buying your own home. I understand their concern. I understand their complaint. But if you do away with that, forget it. I mean, capital has already begun to flee this country, and it would flee it in droves if you were to do that. So it's vitally important that we continue to rail in defense of private property rights while simultaneously doing everything in our power to destroy the vaccine mandates. And it's a very fine line to walk, but it's what we have to do.
Yeah, I think we're so basic. We say we don't live in a property rights society. We live in a civil rights society. Act accordingly.
Yeah, there you go. I like it.
He's right. Okay. Well, my internet is being complete and total shit today, so I got to cut the stream short. Clint, thanks so much for coming on. Where can people find you at?
I'm at Liberty Lockpod on Twitter, Liberty Lockdown on Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, everywhere else. Give me a follow. I had Ian Crossan on today. I have Matt Kibbe on Monday. I had Dave Rubin on a few days ago. I had, the list goes on and on. My show I've just had amazing guests. So hop on board.
Actually, I want to ask you a question. If you could get any guest from like the conservative white people, who would you get? Get guests from the conservative right.
Probably Tucker Carlson.
Yeah,
good pick. I think he's the best. He's the best big, mainstream news guy that exists right now. Maybe the only good one. And obviously, I have tremendous disagreements with him. But for what he's done against the lockdowns, against mandates, he's been heroic in that regard, and I would love to have him on to discuss that. So that's the top.
Good pick. Okay, guys, another episode of the Catholic Libertarian podcast. Read more books.